Hello everybody, we're going to make a watch face using facer.io and Inkscape for creating our layouts, and we're going to create some custom fonts. This is kind of a basic starter if you want to try to make something that's a little bit higher up than just a watch face with the built-in fonts. It's pretty easy using the built-in fonts. You just check the font and arrange where you want it to go and the colors, and it's not too tough. But if I want something more interesting, like for example, the example on the thumbnail, I want to be able to create my own fonts. This is the example that we talked about on the thumbnail right here. And you'll notice that these fonts are not exceptionally amazing, except for the fact that they have a texture, and you can't do that with the built-in Facer tools. So what you're going to need to have in this guy here to do this is you're going to have a couple of things. You'll need to have Inkscape. Go to inkscape.org and download this. Obviously, if you know how to use Illustrator, then you may not want to worry about Inkscape. GIMP we won't use in this particular video. It's more for handling photos like Photoshop. Facer.io, you need to make an account on Facer and start making your own watch faces, and that's what we're going to use to make these faces. Now, you can use Android Studio to make Android apps, but it is a lot more complicated. The installation is a lot more in detail, and there are a lot of things you need to figure out to do that. If you want to just make some cool watch faces, then Facer is one of the ways you can do that. It's free. You can pay more money if you want, but most of these features, all the features I will be using, will be from the free version. Okay, so let's first of all let's go to Inkscape, and so I'm going to open my Inkscape program here. Just so you'll know, I've been doing design for 20 to 30 years. I've been doing computer programming for many years, and I find that Inkscape does a great job. As far as my watch faces, I have 30 or 40 watch faces on Facer and over 50,000 downloads. So I have some experience and some popularity, I guess, if you can put it that way. Okay, so here's our new document in Inkscape. What we want to do is we're going to create a page that's the same size as the Facer interface, which is basically, I think it's 320 by 320. We're going to make ours 300 by 300, and we're going to actually lay out our watch face using we'll be using Inkscape instead of using the layout tools on Facer. Now, Facer has some pretty good tools. You can move things around pretty easily, and so it's nice. You can use that. But to do this, since we're using our own custom fonts, rather than have to move them around in Facer, we're going to actually do this in Inkscape, make our life a little bit easier, okay? So this is what the document properties looks like. If I went to File and Document Properties, I'm going to change this to pixels, and I'm going to change that to 300 and 300. And just close that window when you're done. It should look like that. And I'm going to zoom in with my magnifying glass. Now, obviously, you're going to want to probably, if you haven't used Inkscape before, you're probably going to want to pause this and rewind several things. And that's okay. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to import our background. Now, the background, there should be a link in the description to download this background. You can, of course, do your own, but I'm going to go to import that background. It's called to back right there. I'm going to open that. This is too big. Okay, that's okay. This is kind of the inspiration that I took of when I found the font to create this. So I'm going to click on this. Now you'll see up here the dimensions of that selected object. I'm going to change that to pixels, and I'm going to make this 300 pixels by 300 pixels, like that. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Now I'm going to center that on my page. Now, if I have my Snap 2 up here, it'll work. But you'll be using what's called the Align and Distribute a lot. So go to Object, go down to Align and Distribute, and it should pop up over here. And then from now on, you'll have icons up here to find that. I have my Align and Distribute. And for example, if I want to line this in the middle of the page, I click in the middle horizontally and vertically. Now it's in the middle. I'm going to go to my layers. If it's not up there, go to layer and go to layers and objects. It looks like that. I'm going to click on this image and I click the lock because I don't want that to go away. I don't want to move that by mistake. So there's my background. Now, when I'm creating something, the first thing I look to is fonts. I want to find a font that looks good, that it kind of inspires me. And the font that I found, and there's going to link for this too, is called Robot. It's called Robot Children, and it looks like this. Robot Children is it's on dafont.com. You can download this. It's free for personal use, and you'll want to download this so you can also upload it to Facer. So download it and install it. You're probably going to have to restart your Inkscape. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I didn't say that. So save what you've got, and then install the font, and then reopen Inkscape, and you should have those fonts. So I might want to pause it right there. So right now, what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to Inkscape. I've got this to the right size. I'm going to type some numbers in here, 1 and a 2 and a 3, and you can see by 2 I mean 1, I mean 2, and by 1 I mean 3. So there are my 3, and let's give that a color that kind of stands out. And I've got my Robot Children installed, so let's double click on this, and you'll see it's highlighted. I'm coming here to text and font. It pops up over here. Then there is the icon for that. I'm going to zoom down to Robot Children, and right there, and then hit apply. Now I got Robot Children, so I'm going to do the same thing for all of these. Now it'll be at the top of my list since it's one I'm using, and hit apply every time, and that gives me my Robot Children. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure it's going to fit well inside this watch face. Now the watch face we're making is a circular watch face, and but it's kind of all based on that square anyway. You can't really save an image as a circle, at least not that I know of. Maybe if it's an SVG perhaps. But so we're going to work in this square-based environment, but we also want to make sure it works well on a circle. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go to my circle up here, and let's create a circle. I'm going to hold down my control button, and it's going to force it to be a circle. And then I'm going to right click on the white to make it a white stroke, and I left click on the X to have no stroke. And then I need to make sure that this circle is 300 by 300 pixels. And then I want to go over to my align and distribute here and make sure I'm going to go to page and make sure that's in the center of the page. And then I'm going to go to my layers, and I'm going to go to lock that so I can't move it around by mistake. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is I want to position my fonts in a way that looks good on that page. First thing I need to do is I need to rotate this a little bit. And if I change size, make sure you use the control button as you change sizes. It won't stretch or smash your objects. So I need to change this. I need to rotate that. So I'm going to go here to Objects and Transform. And I'm going to rotate that 15 degrees. No, not that. It's not what I want. I go to, let's make that back to 0 in case that's going to do something. I'm going to go to Rotate, and I want to make that 15 degrees backwards and hit Apply. Excellent. So now it's set to 15. So now I can move all those to 15. Know that those are straight up now, and they also match this line right there. See that? It matches that line, which is what I'm looking for. I want that to kind of match that idea. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is we need to match the size of this so it matches. Now, originally I wanted this to line up, and I was originally going to make a font that would line up with those lines right there. See that? So this would be the bottom part, and these would line up. And we can still do that, but I'm not going to, maybe that for a future video if I make one, we'll do that. So what I'm doing now is I just want to make sure these line up there, and that lines up pretty close right there. I'm not going to be too worried about it. Now see how that lines up pretty good? So now I'm going to see what that is. Let's see what that font size is. And it is 138. I'm going to change that to exactly 138 because I need to know what that is. And you might want to write that down in case you need to remember that in the future. And I'm going to write it down right now. Font size is 138 because sure enough, I'll need to remember that. Okay, so now that's great. Let's change this guy to 138 as well. And let's take this guy over here. Now we need to figure out where we want to put these here so they match okay and they're kind of centered. If I center them exactly right, and to do that, I'm going to make a rectangle here, and we're going to put a rectangle down the middle to kind of center that. And you can kind of eyeball that size. I'm not going to tell you what size to make that, but that's going to be the space between my letters. I'm going to go back to my align objects, and that's in the center. So if I take these two guys here, and if I try to move those to match that, in my opinion, because of the fact that it's up higher on the screen, it doesn't really look like it's centered to me. And so I don't know if I like that. I'm going to move this here, and the fact is this 2 is probably not going to be that visible. 1 would probably be easier because 2 will be very unlikely because it's only going to appear on a 24-hour mode, which you want to do. You want to make sure that your clock is 24-hour setting because many users will request that if you don't do it. And I spend a lot of time rewriting my code to make sure that it takes 24 hours. So do that from the first part. Make it a 24-hour possible clock. So, and you can see right here, if I move this over a little bit here like this, I'm kind of looking like I don't want that exactly in the middle. So I want this maybe right like that, and maybe like that. And, maybe a little bit further over. I think I like that better because I'm trying to get that to match. And even though that's not quite in the center, you know what, I don't like that too much. Anyway, so that's a lot, and this is a lot of eyeball. You want to try to figure that out yourself. Okay, so and whatever you think it looks good. It looks good for me right there. And so now what we want to do is we're going to create a guideline. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another rectangle like this that goes across here and across the bottom, and also for my minutes and seconds. For my minutes. So I'm going to grab this guy here, and we're going to Control D and duplicate those, and then I'm going to hit my Control and shrink that down. And we want to see where the minutes are going to go. Okay, so that's what we want to kind of figure out. So we'll work on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip ahead, get those all fixed up, and hopefully you'll get an idea what I'm talking about, and be right back with you. Okay, I've made my spacers for my fonts now, and the reason I would like to do this is because I don't want my fonts to dance around as the time changes. I want the fonts to be right in the same spot every time. So we've got some spacers here for that. And if you want to follow along and figure that out, that's great. You don't have to do this, but I like it. So I've got my spacer here to space this. I rotated at either 15 or 75 degrees, depending on which direction you go. I also have this one here that's a little bit bigger spacer. Notice this space between this right here and this right here is like exactly the right spot because I want to be able to put that here. And, oh, you know what? I need to have something here, so I need to fix that. And then I join these together here and here. Now, this is all one piece. See that? It's all one piece so that I can now move that and keep track of that. I want to put this right here so that I have this extended here because I want to get this spot right there. So I'm going to do that really quickly. I'll show you how I don't know why I did it that way, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of this and copy it. So I'm going to make a rectangle here, and let's make it a different color. No, I got that highlighted still. So let's make a rectangle, and I'm going to make a copy of this. So I'm going to get rid of my snap 2 up here. Make a rectangle like this. Let's make it a different color so you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to do is I'm going to do intersect between these things. So intersect, I want the intersection, so I want this piece here. So I'm going to click here and shift, and you know, I need to unlock that. So let's unlock my guide. Okay, I found it. This is right here. I'm gonna label this. Go to object, right click it, go to object properties, and I'm gonna call this guide, so I can find it more easily. Hit set. So let's go back here. So here's my guide. I don't want to make this locked. So I'm gonna grab my guide, and I'm gonna hit the shift key and grab this guy. So these two should be selected. Now I'm gonna go to path and intersection, and now I've made a copy. Oops, I don't want to do that. I make a copy of this. Let's Control D, duplicate it, and then make an intersection. Now I should have just this piece right here, right? And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to my Snap 2, and I'm going to go right to there. And I want to put that right there. No, that's not what I want to do. I want to line this up right here to this. Oh wait, is that not lined up? Yeah, okay. So that's what I want to do there. So I want to, I'm going to move this over here so I don't have any empty space. I'm going to hit Shift on both these, so they're both selected. This guy here and this right here. And I'm going to go to Path, and I'm going to go to Union. Now that's all. I don't need this right here, but I'm not going to worry about it because it's not in the way. Okay, so now I got my guide made. Now I'm going to lock it out. Okay. So if you want to take a look at that, this is kind of what I've done here. I've made a guide. I'm going to save this real quickly. And we'll call that custom 3, custom 4. And you want to take a look at that and make sure you've got those guides set up kind of the same way. And if you don't, that's fine. No big deal. You'll find that your fonts won't snap in there very well because fonts don't do that very well. It's a text. You want to convert those fonts to objects, and we'll talk about that more in a bit. Okay, so I have my 1 and 3. Now what I want to do is I want to create a custom number 1 so that it looks a little bit better. This number 1 is kind of small. Just double click on that and change that to 138 like the rest of them. And you'll see this is kind of a small, it's small in the sense that it doesn't take a lot of space. This is not a mono spaced font. And so the 1 is like 1/3 of the size of the 3. And I don't really like that. We can work with that, but I want to make this a little bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little, kind of a little jig to make this 1 a little bit bigger. And I will do that really quickly, and then I'll show you what I've done. Okay, so I'll be back in a minute. Okay, what I've done is I've taken this piece right here, and I've duplicated and I've rotated it. Now I'm going to kind of shave these pieces off to make it look like the 1. So first thing I want to do is I don't like this right here, so I'm going to make myself a rectangle. I'm going to start right here, and that I'm going to use to cut that off. So I'm going to get right here, and I'm going to stretch it down a little bit like here. I'm going to hit the Shift key and Path and Difference. It's going to cut those pieces off. Now if that doesn't work, sometimes it means that these are groups. So you have, for some reason, Inkscape does that. I'm going to make sure I ungroup that. Okay, now it should work. So I Path and I want to Difference. Now that's a little bit better, right? This is a little too much. So I'm going to make another. I'm going to make another rectangle, and I'm going to kind of see kind of what I like there. I think it's something like that. It looks good. So I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to Shift, hit on that one, and hit Path and Difference again. So now that looks better. Now I want to do a similar thing here on the bottom part, a little bit longer. So let's make a rectangle here, and let's see, something like that. That looks about right. So now I'm going to click on this guy, and it's also a group, so I have to ungroup it. And I click here, and I'm going to hit the difference there. Now that's a little bit better. So I want to do the same thing over here, but I want to make sure that this is the same distance. And an easy way to do that is I'm going to create a rectangle right here. and I want it to be that distance. To see what I did there, I did the snap to. You might have to change a couple of these settings here to make it snap to the right spot. But now if that's going to cover that distance, so now I'm going to come over here and do the same thing over here, and I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to cut it off right there, so it's that same distance. And it might not look quite right because of the fact of that slanted look there, but for the most part it should be working. So I'm going to make a rectangle like this. I'm going to move this up a little bit so I can get that upper here, and then now I'm going to simply shift and path and difference, and then we can get rid of that spacer. So there's my 1. Okay, now the 1 is not quite right yet because it's all separate pieces. See that? So I want to take all these 3 things, hit the shift key and the shift key. Now they're all 3 objects and now are selected. I'm going to go to path and union, and guess what? I bet you there's some groups in there. No path. That's a group. Gotta ungroup it. And then let's see. That's a path. Okay. There we go. So I should now be able to union there. Okay. So there is my 1. Everything's great. Everything's perfect. Now I can start making my fonts and start making our watch face. Okay. So let's get these off the screen here, and we probably don't even need that background anymore. So let's go back to our here's our image right here. See that? Let's get rid of that. And here is our first font right there. And because of the fact I have a space here and space here, I can make that spaced out. And that is not perfect, but it's a lot better, I think. Oh, see this line here? I want to get rid of that path there. I want to get rid of that circle there because we don't want that. That's just for our guideline. So we won't be using that anymore. So here's our 13. Awesome. Okay, so let's start with our 1 first. Let's get this out of the way. And we're going to, first of all, we want to make this. Oh, let's import our gold texture. So hopefully you downloaded that from the shared folder. So I'm going to file and import, and it's going to, of course, you can make your own. It's called Letters Background, and open that. Awesome. And it's going to be pretty small. I'm not sure why it is, but so grab that corner, hold down the control button, and drag that up here. And don't make it too big. Just make it so that it's big enough to, and this moves things to the back. It's big enough to cover the font. So let's just use our control, make that a little bit bigger. So we want to make that fit right there in the middle of the font and just give it some space there. And that's cool. So that's what we're going to use for our texture for our letters. And I'm going to duplicate that, Control D, and use the duplicate because I want to be able to get that and not have to worry about the size. And you might want to Control S, save this guy. Okay, so I'm going to take this right here and let's move it to the back. And now I want to align it with this 1. So I'll hit the Shift. Now they're both highlighted. Go over to my Align and Distribute. I don't want page anymore. I want to based on the smallest object, which is the 1, and hit Arrange. Now that should move. Oh, hit this guy here and there. Now it's in the middle, and we'll be using that same approach so that it kind of matches the texture. So here's my 1. Awesome. Now here's where it gets kind of complicated and probably has some options you can use with in Photoshop or Illustrator, but I'm going to kind of, Inkscape has some limitations, and so it's going to look kind of weird. If you do know a way to do this better in Inkscape, I'd be glad to hear how to do it because it's saving me some time and energy. So we're going to go back to our Inkscape. Now what I want to do is I want to have a couple of different dimensions to this 1. So what I want to do is I want to make a smaller version inside of this. And in Inkscape, one of the ways to do this is I'm going to highlight my number 1 and Control D. I now have 2 number 1s there. See that? And now I'm going to make this a different color so I can see it. And now I'm going to shrink this down. And to do that, hit Control and then left parentheses. I'm going to do it 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I have a little bit of dimension. Okay? So what we're going to do now is we are going to give some shadows behind this. And this is also a little bit of a workaround for this. To do that, I'm going to make a separate. The reason I could do this normally because I'm going to put these textures inside, or I'm going to use that to clip that texture. It won't work, not in Inkscape anyway. So I'm going to grab this guy right here. I'm going to grab that yellow one in my case, and I'm going to duplicate that again. And now I'm going to make it black. And then I'm going to come over here to my objects and go where it says fill and stroke. And it looks like this over here. And this is your fill and stroke menu. And the fill right now, I'm going to make this blurry. And so I'm going to make this down here. And I've got this written down. It's 30 pixels. And it's going to be blurry now. So now it doesn't look, it looks kind of weird. So I'm going to hit the down arrow. I'm going to keep on hitting that until that's behind the yellow. Now that is my shadow behind the yellow. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to put this texture inside the yellow. But first of all, I want to rotate this because I want these to be different so they're more distinct. So this is going to be the back layer, so it's going to be dark on the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to click on the yellow, and then shift and click on the, you know what, let's duplicate that first and send that to the back. Okay, so I'm going to click on, because if I do that, I'll lose it. And I'm going to click on the shift, and then shift and click on the outline. Now there's the two objects, the yellow and the texture, and go to path, object and clip and set clip. Now if I move that to the front, you'll see that nothing happens. There we go. You'll see that now I have a texture there, right? And now I want to do the same thing with that inner green one that we did with the outer green one. So first of all, I'm going to hit right click on it. I'm going to hit Control D to make a copy of it. There's two now. Now I'm going to make it black and come over here to our blur. In this case, I'm going to make this only 20 pixels. And then if I move it back, you'll see it'll be behind that. Now I'm going to click on the green. And now this time though, I'm going to rotate it the other way. So there's a contrast between the two. Now you can do it any way you want. There are a lot of ways to do that, but I'm going to move it this way. And then I'm going to highlight this and highlight that green with the shift key, and then go to object, clip, set clip. And there is our first letter, and I don't see why. Now what's going on? Got to get that to work. So there is my one image. Now, if you run into those problems, you can see all your images over here. You can move them around and figure out which one what it is. I'm sorry I got that messed up for you. Okay, so now I'm going to highlight that whole thing. Make sure you make it nice and big because the shadow is pretty big. And I'm going to go to Object and group that object. And now see, here's my object. I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to call that hours 1 and set it. Okay, now we can start working on our watch face. Let's get that done. So let's go to our guide. Let's make that guide go away. And now we want to export this as a PNG because we want that transparent background. So if I go to Edit, File, and Export right here, this is going to pop up, and that's the icon right there. I wanted, since I made our page 300 by 300, I'm going to export it as a page, not the selection, as a page. That way it keeps it all lined up perfectly right. So now I've got that there. I want to click down here. This allows me to change where I want to save it. I'm going to save this in my watches folder and in my gold folder that I made before. I'm going to save this as, and I already have one here, but I'm going to save it again. I'm going to save it as YT for YouTube 1X right here. And let's save it. It's going to tell me that I'm going to override it. That's okay. There is my first one. So let's now go to Facer. And let's start making our watch face. So once you've got your account created, you can just click on New Design, or if you go to this guy, click on Create right there. And I'm creating a new design, and I'm going to create go from a blank design. And now I want to upload that background that I had. So let's go to Add Element, and I want to add an image, and it's called To Back, I believe. And let's see, I have that here and into share and gold, and it's called to back right there, and open that. And there is my background image, right? And of course it's a circle, it's a circular watch face, so it's going to be in a circle. So now we want to add our element. So let's add our element, which is that one that we made. And I called it H1X because it's our one. I got it back to my watches folder. It's our one, but it's in the tens position. So that's why I called it that. And you can use any other system you want, but I'm going to call it, it's called H1X, and it's right here. Hours, H for hours. Now you'll notice that it's lined up perfectly. See that? It's lined up perfectly on this edge that we wanted, and it looks really good. That looks really good. I like that a lot. And that's my one, okay? So let's give this a name here. We call it Gold 5. We've done this a couple of times. So here's my Gold 5. Down here is going to say that it's saving, but we don't have to wait around for that. Let's go back to Inkscape and let's pull up our guide again. There we go. Now, obviously, what we need to do is we need to also have a 1 over here in the ones position. So I'm just going to grab this guy right here, and I'm going to move it over here to the ones position. Now, I'm going to line up here in this bottom corner. See that? I'm not going to line up here because I want to keep this. I could line up here, but then that would kind of run into each other at the bottom. I think I want to keep that separate. So that is now my 1. So let's get rid of my guide right here, and now we can export this. So go to our export right here. It should be up here now. So if you've done it once, here's your export, and I'm export by the page. Here I want to change where I'm going to save it, so I click right here, and I'm going to put that in my watches gold, and this is going to be called X1, so it's going to be hours X1, which is in the ones position, and save it. And it's going to tell me that I've already got one there. That's okay. I'm going to replace it. Okay, now let's go back to Facer and see how we get that to look. Now what we're going to have to do is have to programmatically change how these work. So I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to add an element, and this time we're going to add in the X1 element. So it's YTX1 right here, the YTX1, which is the one in the ones position, and there we go. I don't see it. What did I do wrong? Let's delete it and try it again. It might not be the right name, so let's try it again here. Let's see, that's in watches, and it's going to be TX1 like that, and open it. There we go. That looks sharp, right? I think it does. That looks really good. I like that. So now let's do the 2 and a 3, and then I'll show you how to program it. Okay. So by those same steps, I will show you the 2, and then we'll pause it, and you can do the other 2, the 3, and figure that out. So let's go back to Inkscape now, and let's go to our layers. This right here is our. Let's see. We want to find. There's hours 1. Let's get rid of that. Let's lock it and get rid of it. And let's bring up our guide again. Now we have to do a 2. Now here I have a 2 saved to make sure it's at 138. So let's double click on it. 138, that's the right size. And now we're going to make sure that we line it up here. Now notice it is a text. See that down there? So what we want to do, we want that to be a text. We want that to be an object. So go to path and object to path. Now that's going to fit right in there. Perfect. Let's duplicate this. The reason I want to duplicate it, I don't want to change the size of this background. I want the background to be the same because I want it to all look pretty similar. And so now I'm going to click on that and click on the 2, go to my align and distribute, and I'm going to go to the smallest object, boom and boom. It should be pretty much already. Nice. So now what I want to do is I want to do the same thing we did before, right? I want to make an interior version of that. So Control D to copy it, make it a different color, and then it's a group, so I have to turn around and ungroup it for some reason. And now I Control left parentheses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Now that's set up. So now I want to make my shadows. So I'm going to click on the outside yellow one, Control D, make a copy, make it black, come over here and change that to 30 pixels, right? And let's move that to the back behind the yellow. Like there we go, there's our shadow. And then we are going to duplicate this, send that to back, and then we're going to use this one here. Now I have two of those, they're just on top of each other. And now I'm going to rotate this with the dark on the bottom, okay, and highlight the yellow, and then right click and then highlight the texture and go to Object and Clip. And now that's clipped inside there. And if I move that up, you know it's behind everything, so I move it up a little bit. There it is right there. Okay? Now do the same thing with the inner two. I'm going to Control D to make a copy of it, make it black, make it 20 pixels in this case. You can do whatever you want there. And now that should be behind that too. Now I'm going to take this and rotate this so the dark is on the top. Hold down the Control button to make it rotate in the right increments. And then I'm going to click here and Shift and click on the green. And then Object and Clip and set that clip. Now I want to make sure that looks right. And I just move it to the front using my front. Now that looks pretty cool right there. Is at the top of the bottom, looks good. Let's grab that whole thing. Right, see how big that shadow is? And let's make that into a group. Awesome. So now what we're going to do is we want to get rid of go to layers, get rid of our guide. Now we want to export that. So notice that we export to the page and we want to change where that goes. So click on this little folder and wherever you're putting it, that's where you want to put it in here. I'm going to make mine watches in gold, and this is going to be my YTH for hours 2x, and I'm going to save that, and it will tell me I've already got it saved. That's okay, and I'm going to replace it. Awesome. Now let's go back to Facer, and we are going to put that 2 in there just to make sure it's working right. Okay, so we're going to find the 2x, which is right here. And there we go. It's on top of the 1. We'll fix that in a bit. That works great. Let's go back now and pull up our guide. And we are now going to move that over here. And I'm using that snap 2 to snap right to that corner right there. Get rid of my guide now. I don't need you anymore. Now I'm going to export you again. Now it's going to be that. I'm going to come down here to decide where I'm going to put it, which is going to be here in my Google Drive, watches, gold. And this is going to be, in this case, it's going to be X2, like that. And you can give your guy any name you want. Those names are kind of, my names are kind of, I guess you could call a little bit strange and hard to understand, and you might want to give yourself a longer name for that. That's fine, right? So now let's add our element, and now that should be there as X2, YTX2, here we go. YT, there we go, right there. And there it should have another 2. Awesome. Let's save it. Hit that save button. Okay, so while that's saving, let's go back to Inkscape and let us, that is our 2 right there. And I'm going to come over here and go right click, go to Object Properties. I'm going to change that to Hour 2, just so I have that set somewhere. Go back to my layers and let's get rid of it. Let's freeze that, and then let's make it not visible. So I should have my Hour 1 and Hour 2. It has hours, but I'll change that. Let's do a 3 and then we'll move on. Oh, let's do our 1. We haven't done the 1 yet. So let's do our 1. No, we did do the 1. Yeah, let's do our 3. So let's bring our guide back up here. And you'll notice here I have a 3 here. You might want to duplicate that. You don't have to, just to keep the right font size. But since you have the font size written down, then you don't have to worry about it. Now we don't have to put the 3 over here because there's no 30 hours. So we're going to put it over here, right? And that's already, let's change that to let's go to object, let's ungroup it. There's my 3 right there. And let's take this guy here and we are going to highlight both of those, go to and we go to center and center. Awesome. Now we do the same thing we did before. I'm going to duplicate this, give it another color, and then let's hit our control left parentheses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now I have a inside there. Let's go to the yellow part and control D and make our shadow. And this is kind of repetitive, obviously. There might be macros for doing this. I would check on it, but I guess I'm too lazy. Anyway, so that should now be behind there. So I'm going to take this. First of all, I'm going to rotate it because I want the shadow on the bottom. Then I'm going to duplicate it and push that duplicate to the back. So now I'm going to get the yellow and the shift. And let's go to object and clip and set that clip. And then we move that to the front so we can see it. Awesome. Now let's do the same thing. Let's make our shadow. Control D, shadow. Now I got 2 of them. One's going to be black. Change this to 20. Right there. And we can move that behind the green. Now I want to, before I do this, let's rotate it. Hold down the control so it keeps it in the same fixed angle. And click on that. And it's on this. And let's go to object and clip. Set clip. There's my 3, and let's bring that to the front. Nice. Oh, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to grab the whole thing, and I'll make that into a group. You don't have to do that. It just makes it easier to manage. And let's go to our layers and get rid of our guide, and now we can export this. And now we don't have to export anymore on the left, just the right. So let's go to export. We need to go by page. And let's tell it where we want to put it and what we want to call it. It's kind of like a save as, right? And go to watches and gold. And this is going to be my X3. And let's save it. And hit OK. Nice. Now let's go back to Facer. And let us add that 3. And so it's going to be YTHX3 right here. YTHX3. Open that. Nice. Okay. Now let's talk about programming these guys, because obviously we don't want them all to show up at once. So let's start with the 1. So I'm going to click the eyeball on all the rest of these guys. And I'm going to make that 1 appear only when I want it to appear. So let's think about now how this is going to work. Okay. When I click on an object in Facer, when I click on this object here, I can come here to its properties, and you can see here's opacity. I can make this 4. I can make it 44. I can make it, or 55, and I can make it any amount I want. But the cool thing is I can actually put a formula in there that will only make it appear in certain circumstances. I can use a conditional, and that's what we're going to do. Is we're going to, instead of just put a 100, I'm going to put a conditional right there. So let's go. I'm going to pop into Notepad, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. In Facer, the conditionals start and end with $signs. And inside of that, I want to ask a question. I'm going to ask the question of what is the value? What is the hour right now? What's the time, right? Now in Facer uses what's called tags, and we'll show you a little bit more of that later on. But a tag is basically we'll pull up the time. And in this case, the tag I want to use is DB, and that's my tag. And this is going to specifically, and if you go up here to your Facer and click on this question mark and go to see the docs. This will pop up, and you want to go to advanced, and you want to go to tags. What we just made was a tag, and look at all these tags. It'll tell you the temperature, AM, PM. So if I put this here, it's kind of like a variable that it will, when I put that in there, it'll return a number, in this case 12, for example. So what we did was the dB. Let's find dB. Here's dB right there. dB is the hour in the day based on what the user has decided, whether it's 12 or 24. This is what you want to use most of the time, because you will be able to adapt whether someone has selected 24-hour mode or 12-hour mode. So you want to do this right here. So that's my dB. And that's just the hour. It's not the time. It's just the hour in the day. Okay? So we want just the hour, and we want to figure out what that hour is. So we go back to our formula here. The hour, this is our hour. So let's say the hour, we want the 1 to show up when the hour is greater than 9. So let's put greater than 9. And a double ampersand. And let's put that back in there again, the dB. Okay, that's once again referring to the hour of the day. And we want it to be less than 20, right? So it's going to be more than 9. That means it's 10. And less than 20, which is 19. So 10 through 19 is the only times I want that to show up. Now that is my question. That's my conditional. And I have to put a question mark there. I mean, I'm asking this, hey, is this thing greater than 9 and less than 20? If it is, then make it visible, which is 100. Remember, 100 is the opacity, so I can see it. If it's not, make it 0, which means don't make it visible at all. Okay, so now the reason I'm doing it in Notepad, because typing in Facer, it has a limited space there, and sometimes it's a pain in the neck. So we're going to come back down here to our project. I'm going to click on our 1, and I'm going to come up here and click on the 1, and I come up here to the properties. Instead of 100, I'm going to paste that formula I put in there right there. Okay? And now it should, let's go back to PNG right here. Now it says 5 o'clock down here. This that was me, but how come it shows? Well, the reason it shows is because it's 24-hour mode right now, which means it's 1700. So if I move this, that's going to be 18, 19, and now when I get to 20, it should go away. There we go, 20, 21, 22. So I come down here, now if I get to 7, good, all the way down to 10, now 12 it should be there, 11 should be there, 10 it should be there, and when it comes to 9, it should go away. Awesome. So that's only going to show up when it's 10 o'clock to 19 o'clock, 19 hours. Excellent, right? So I've got that one fixed. Now let's do our 1x. Let's do this guy here. This one's a little bit more, this is a little bit easier once you know the trick. You want this to show up only on 01, 11, and 21. Now you could do that. You could say if it's 11, if it's 1 or 11 or 21, it makes a pretty long formula. But what we're going to do is we're going to use an operator that's used in programming a lot, but a lot of people don't know that it exists. It's called the modulus. And we want to find out what the modulus is. Modulus is a division type problem that returns the remainder of a division problem. So for example, 10 divided by 11 is 1, right? And 10 divided by 21 is 1. So I want to use that modulus. I can use that, a very simple formula to do that. Let's go back to our Notepad. And so now what we want to do is we want to use our dollar signs, and we use the same tag for dB. So if dB, and now we use modulus, which in this case is a percent. So if I divide it by 10, and the remainder is 1, that means that I want that to be visible. Otherwise, not visible. Okay? So if it's a 1 remainder, so if it's 21, if it's 11, or if it's 1, it shows up. Really simple and elegant that way. So let's copy that. Let's go back to our So let's go to our 1x or x1 right there. Come down here and let's put that in there. There we go. Now it's gone. So now let's just run our clock again. Right? So there's 12 midnight. There, good. It's 1 o'clock. Check that out. 1 o'clock. And then that goes away. And then it should come back at 11 o'clock. Oh, check it out. The 1 came up from before. Now it's 11 o'clock. Okay. Now it's 19. Now it's going to come up to 20. It's going to go away. Now it's 20. Now 21. See that? Perfect. It was working great. Let's save that guy. Now let's do our 0. We probably should have done that first, right? So go back to our 0 here. So that's our 1s. Oh, do we not? Oh, we didn't upload a 0. Oh, we should do that, didn't we? Let's do that. Let's do a 0 real quick. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause it and let you do your 0 on your own. So let's stop it for a minute. I'll come back in a minute and show you my 0, okay? Okay, I've got my 0 made. Hopefully you were able to go back and take a look and follow those same steps that you did for the other numbers. But I got my 0 done, so let's get rid of our guide. And yes, I forgot to copy some stuff, and I had to, yeah. So yeah, you know what? It's fine. It's all fine. So if you make a mistake, you go back and try it again. So I'm going to come back here to my export. My export is a page. Let's make sure I put it in the right spot. So I'm going to put it in Google Drive, my drive, down here to watches. Gold. I'm going to call this my YTH0X. And I'm going to save that. And it's going to overwrite something that's cool. And I'm going to come back and before I go to Facer, I'm going to move it and make another one. So let's get my guide back up here, and let's move this so that it snaps right there, just like a dream. And I'm going to get rid of my guide again, and let's export that guy again. Export it and as a page, and we're going to go to my Google Drive again, into my watches folder, into my gold. And I'm going to call this my YTHX0 for the right-hand side in my ones column. And make sure this says RGBA. If it doesn't say RGBA, you might not be getting the same result as I'm getting. So make sure that's right. I probably should have pointed that out. Okay, it already exists. That's great. Awesome. Now that's done. So let's go back to a Facer and let's upload our zeros. We don't have our 3 program yet. We have our we don't have our 1s. We don't have our 2. And we don't have our 3, but that's okay. Let's add our 2 zeros. So I want to have my 0x. So YTH0x. YTH0x. Where are you? Here we go. YTH0x. Excellent, and let's add our YTHX0. YTHX0 right there. And why aren't you working? Come on. Okay, fine. Let's delete your element again. Let's try again. Maybe the website's being weird. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. Let's find out. I don't know. Let's see. YTHX0. There we go. That looks right. So now we need to program these. Okay, if you want, you can move these down so in the right order. You don't have to do that, obviously. But if you move these down here, it's kind of be easier for you to find them. If you need to find them. And I'm going to put them down here at the bottom before my 1s. So let's get rid of the X0. Let's start with the 0x, this guy here. So when do we want this to show up? Well, this is going to be our leading 0, and that's going to show up when it's going to show up. Let's see. It's going to show up when it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. So it's going to be let's see, how can we do that? It's gonna be greater than. Oh yeah, let's put it this. Let's just put less than 10, right? So anytime it's less than 10, I want this to show up. So let's try that. Let's bring up our notepad again, and now let's do our conditional. And we're still working on the hour, so it's going to be dB. And is it less than 10? If it's less than 10, right, then I want it to be 100. Else, I just want it to be 0. Okay? Here's our question. And here's what happens if it's true. Here's what happens if it's false. Right there. So let's grab that and see if that's going to work. Let's Control C, copy. Let's go back and let's highlight our, and let's go back here and let's paste that in there. Oh, you know what? Look at that. It went away right away. So now what's going to happen, let's move this back here. Notice that at midnight it's 0, 0, right? That's less than 10. So that's going to work. That's going to be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it goes away at 10. Excellent. That works perfectly. So now let's do our X1, X0. And guess what, guys? It's the same thing we did with the 1, right? Let's go back to our, and see the 1 right here? I'm going to just change it to 0. So in other words, if there's no remainder, if it's divisible by 10, there's no remainder, so that's going to happen at zeros. It's going to happen 10 and 20. So that's all I need to have. Let's copy that. Let's go back to our facer, and let's put in here. Boom. There we go. And midnight, that's right. Midnight's going to show up. Then I got 2, and then now it should show up at 10. 10, good. And 11, and it should show up at 20. Awesome. We don't have our 2 yet. Excellent. Okay, let's do our 2 now. We got our zeros, got our 1s. Let's do our 2. Let's do our 2x. Now this is going to be only going to show up when it's over 19. That's it, right? So it's going to show up at 20, 21, 22, and 23. So that's all we got to do. So I'm going to do this instead of 10. I'm going to change this. If it's greater than 19, then I want it to show up. I think that's going to work. Let's try that. And let's go back to our 2 right here, 2x, and let's punch that in there. Boom. Okay, it went away. Let's see what's going on here. So there's our, uh-oh, that's not right. The 2 showing up there. We don't want that. That is not looking right at all. So what did we do wrong? Let's go back to our formula, see what happens. So oh, you know what? Guess what? It has to be greater than 19, not less than 19. You know, you probably saw that, didn't you? Yeah, you probably did. Let's go back and let's go to our 2 again, our 2x. And let's put that in there with the right thing. Okay, now let's try it. Okay, there's our 1, 2, and it should show up at 10, 11, and then that should show up and show up. That should go away at 20. There we go. 20, 21. Nice. Okay, and the 2 is pretty easy, guys. Remember the 2? All we got to do with the 2 is the same thing we did with the 0 and the 1. They should make that a 2 right there. So if it's divisible, if the remainder is a 2, when I divide by 10, if the remainder is a 2, that means it's a 2. Copy that. Let's go down here and let's paste it right there. Awesome. So let's try it. So there's 0, 1, 2 now. Then we should have 10, 11, 12. Good. Then we should have 20, 21, 22. Excellent. Everything's working great. Now let's do our 3. And guess what? The 3 is the same thing. This has got to be 3 now. So if I divide something by 10 and the remainder is 3, then I want that to show up. So let's come back here. Let's make sure I go to my 3 up here and let us put that in there, right? So let's try to start again. So that's 1, that's 0, 1, 2, 3. Excellent. 1, 2, 3, and then it's gonna go to 10, 11, 12, 13, and then obviously there's no more 3. Oh, 23, that's right. Okay, guys, that's pretty much it for our that's pretty much it for our custom fonts. Okay. Now, I know this video is a little bit long, but what we're going to do now is I'm going to just skip forward and do all my letters, all my numbers, and then we'll show you how you basically finish it up and decide if you want to make all your fonts custom fonts. If you do, that's okay, but you have to little extra steps. But we're going to just go our main hours using our custom fonts. So do your rest. You can do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It's the same steps we did before, the same basic formula we did for those. And then I will pause the video and I'll show you what I've got done, and we'll take a couple more steps to make it look okay and maybe even look great. Okay, so give it a try, and I'll see you in a second. All right, you came back? Okay. Well, that's cool. That means hopefully you got it all done. Maybe you needed help, but let's see. Here's what I've got. Now I've got all my numbers here. So if I move my timeline down, I should count all the way up to 23. It doesn't go to 24. 0 is midnight. So I've got all of my watches, all of my hours working great. And now it's looking pretty good. I like that. Now, you can, if you want, you can create, go back to your Inkscape and create your minute if you want to do that. I would maybe do that, maybe not do the double image, maybe just a single image. And you'd have to do the same thing we did before. And it's a lot of work, but if you want to do that, you can certainly do that. We've got, if you did your guide the same way I did mine, you should have a guide here to set up, to put these all in here just like this to make them match. Okay, and you'll have to upload, the 10s and the 1s. You can try just uploading the 1 and moving it if you want. So if I just upload 1, 3, and then just have it twice and just move it over, you can certainly try that if you want to save some time. Or you can do something like what I'm going to show you now, just use that font. Now remember, we use Robot Children. So we can now, for example, let's add in the minutes down here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add element. And I'm going to come down to clock, and I just go digital time. And digital time shows up just like that. Okay? And obviously that'll change based on where we're at. Now notice it has the colon and everything like that. We just want this part, but take a look up here at the at this formula. Notice this is the dB here. That's the hours. So if I wanted to, I could just delete everything before that, and now I have just the hours. You see that? I just have the minutes. I'm sorry. Now let's talk about that font. If I can click here in font, notice I can add a custom font. And here's where you want to have it unzipped and loaded in your computer. Now you go like this, and you upload that TF file, right? That the file that you've got there. And notice that it's not there. If I go to custom, it's right here because I've already uploaded it. It's called Robot Chicken. Now I can change that to Robot Chicken, and now I can use this to create the rest of my watch without having to do the custom custom font. Now I need to rotate this. Now I'm going to rotate it. Let's try 15. No, let's try, we want to rotate it the other way. So it's 15, so that would be, what's 360 minus 10 is 345. There we go. And there is our minutes. Now, if you wanted to, obviously, you could also change the font size right here. So I could change it down to 80. You know, something like that. And obviously, you can play around with where you want to put that. I don't know if you want to put it right like this. Maybe up here like this a little bit. So it's kind of fitting in there a little bit better. You see that? Or you can even obviously make it smaller and put it to where you want. Right? That kind of matches our original design like that. But I think a little bit bigger would probably be better, and a little bit like this. The original design calls for the battery here and the date up here. So I'm going to click on this. Let's pick a different color. Let's try to get a color kind of similar to the color that we have up there. let's see, a little bit, no, that's a little bit gold. That's probably okay right there. And you can obviously change it. I think it needs a little more red. I think it's more red there. So there we go, a little more red. Let's see, that's a little bit better. And you can even add a shadow if you want, like we have the shadow here. So I'm going to click on this, and here it is right up here, our digital time. And I'm going to change that to minutes. Okay, now I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to duplicate it. And now I'm going to have two of them. And this one here below, I'm going to make this black. So I'm going to select black here, right? And then this is going to be the minute shadow. So I'm going to rename that minutes SH for shadow. Okay. And now I have a shadow there, but I can't really see it. So I'm going to move up my position. See that right here? I'm going to change the X, which is the left and right. I'm going to change that to 2 and maybe 3. See, now I have a shadow right there. See it? So now I'm going to go back to my shadow. I'm going to move it down 3, which means 269. Now I have a shadow there. So now if you notice as I move, the shadow shows up. Now notice when I decide where I want to go, I want to probably have, I don't want to have a 1 there. I want to have, that helps me see what kind of space I have available right there. Okay, so those are my minutes. Excellent. So I've got a shadow there. That's great. I got the minutes. If I wanted to, I go to the shadow here, and I can actually go to an opacity and make that shadow a little bit see-through, so you can kind of see it. So maybe something like that. It kind of matches the original. I mean our custom fonts up there. That's not bad. Okay, so now let's put the date up here. So we're going to add another element. Let's save it. We're going to add another element, and let's put the date up here. If you need help with that robot keep on wanting to say robot chicken, robot children, then make sure when you download it, unzip it, you remember where it is, because then you can upload it to Facer, and you need that TTF file. I'm going to go to my, right here, I'm going to go to my downloads, and here's my robot children right there. See that? And if I unzip it, it looks like this. And this is the file I want right here, the TTF file. That's what you upload to Facer if you want to install your own font, which is you'll want to do all the time. You may have some okay fonts, but you're going to want to do that most of the time. Okay, so now I've got it saved. Let's add another element. We're going to add the date. Let's come down here to date right there. And there it is right there. And we probably want something shorter than that. Do we want the day of the week? We could. We probably have room for it. Let's try changing the font to our custom font, right? And let's try rotating it 345. And let's see. And that's kind of long. It doesn't quite fit up there very well, especially if you want a bigger font. We could try something else. Notice here, this is my date. DEE is pretty long. Let's go to our, let's see, let's go to our reference here. I want day, here's the day of the week. But here's the day of the week. Oh, here we go. We have day of the week short string. Oh, let's just do DE. Let's try that. So instead of DEEE, let's just do DE like this. Like that. Okay, there. That's better, I guess. And how about we do the same thing with our month? Okay. And the same thing with DMMM. It's probably just an M. Let's try it. Let's go up to day of the month right here. Here we go. This is numeric. We want short string, so it's just 3 M's. There's no rhyme or reason there. So let's get our 3 M's there. Saturday, January 6th. Awesome. Now let's change the font size. Yeah, it's 18, 20. We don't have to worry about, typically when you're doing this, you want to make sure you have the longest date possible. And I'm thinking that because I'm using our abbreviations, it's not gonna, I'm using a leading 0. It's not going to be any longer than this. Let's try, if I go down to my calendar, let's try a Sunday. Yeah, that's not any bigger. Yeah, Thursday, Wednesday. Wednesday has potentially a lot bigger. Oh, let's say Wednesday the 20. That's probably our biggest one right there. And that fits pretty good. That fits okay. Now we might want to have a little bit bigger font than that. Let's try 24. And let's kind of get that kind of centered in there. And just eyeball that. And of course, let's get our same color. So notice it saves our color from before. And we want a shadow. Yeah, I think I want a shadow. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to, let's rename it first. No, that's fine. This date's fine. Let's duplicate it. And then this down here is going to be our date. We'll rename it our date shadow. And that's going to be black. So let's come down here and pick our black. And now we want to move it, our position. So let's move it over 2. That's 8. It's not as big. Yeah, maybe even only 1. Let's put it 7. Yeah. You know what? We'll try 8. And we'll do 2, and then our Y position down 2. That makes it 6. That's not bad. And then once again, we will change the opacity so it's not as bold as all that. There we go. So there is our date. Now as we move along here, our date will change. And we should work. Okay. Now this is kind of hard to read that, so I don't know if that's going to be helpful. Even January is hard to read. But it should change the date. They're awesome. That works great. Okay, so now let's do one more thing, which is the battery power. Let's go down here to the creator again. Let's go down to device information. I typically want the watch battery level is what I want. And I don't want the percent. I just want the number. So I want this guy here, BLN. That's what I want to do. So let's copy that. And we're going to add, let's see, do we have maybe it has it over here. No, let's just add a text element. And we're going to just put in here, now I can put text, so I'm just going to put my tag right there. There we go, it's 100%. And let's turn around now and make sure that is going to be our font. And then let's make sure it's the color we want to have. And then let's make sure that we rotate it 345. Oh, no, 345. 345. There we go. And let's put that down here. That's probably about as big as we want that to be. And we can actually come down here to the preview and actually change our battery level, so that we can see what that number looks like. So we just want to make sure it's going to fit no matter what the number is. So I'm going to go right here. And now, do I want to put a shadow on that? Yeah, let's put a shadow on that. So let's go right here. And that is, we're going to rename that and call that battery. And then we are going to duplicate it. And this is going to be called battery shadow. Excellent. And that's going to be black. And then we're going to probably move that over. Go to our, let's change that position to 7 and 8. And let's make it a little bit, see through a little bit there. And now let's add a symbol. So let's go up here to icons, and we want to find this guy right here. And now we move that down here. Now let's change that color to the color we want, and notice now it's over here. Now I can't get to it. I can change this position here so I can find it if I do that. Okay, so let's change the size of that a little bit. This doesn't have a font size, width and height, so let's change that to 30 and 30, and we'll put it right close to the, so I can tell that that's what's happening right there. Maybe down a little bit further like that. No. And I might have to use my position here. Let's see, I want to move it 92. And maybe a little bit smaller. And we can also give that a shadow. We don't have to, but let's rename it and call it battery. And let's duplicate that. And let's call that battery shadow. There we go, battery and battery shadow. And that will make black, and we'll do the same thing we did before. We will change it by 1 pixel. Let's change it to 8 and 3. Okay, so there you have your watch face. Now, if you're not happy with that, you want to create everything with your custom fonts, then definitely you do that, right? You can, the problem is you can't really, you can try some overlapping fonts. That might be kind of cool. It might give it a dimensional type aspect if you wanted to try something like that, which means you make a duplicate and put it on top of it and make it a little bit darker and see-through, then it looks to me, well, I'll show you what I mean. Let's see if I go like to this guy here, and I duplicate that again. Okay, and the one in the front is going to have a color of, let's say, white, right? And then I make that a little bit opaque here, I mean see-through like this. And then you can move this up, see that, and give it a kind of dimension, see that? So you can do something like that, but there's a lot of things you can do. And but I'm going to get rid of that one. Okay, so let's save that. Now, we're about 80% done, by the way. We're not quite done. I know this video has been kind of long, but we need to also define what our watch face is going to look like when it's in dim mode. wearOS allows you to have always on, but in a dim setting so that you're not taking up as much energy and as much power. And let me show you what that looks like. So what we want to do here, notice that here's my dim mode right here. Dim mode looks the same, right, as that mode. So in dim mode, you want to change things a little bit, right? So for example, notice dim mode, I've got these right here, and let's go to our minutes right here. And dim mode is different. Maybe I want to change maybe if, for example, in the shadow, I don't see that in dim mode, right? I get the eyeball. And then this guy right here, I might want to change the opacity down to, I don't know, 50 in dim mode. See that? And let's go to, so if I switch back and forth, no, I don't want to do that, I guess. Let's see, let's change that back. So let's go to dim mode. And you know what? I'm going to have to look at that real quick, and I'll get back to you and make sure I get it done right. Okay, yeah, you can't change the opacity. I thought you could. So, well, if I go, for example, to minutes, notice it has dim color. And here I can pick a color. And you want to probably click black and white. It's something a little bit faded like this. You don't want to take too much power, right? So let's make sure we keep track of that. That's an opacity of... oh, that's a color. Oh, it's right there, so we can do that again. So let's come to our date. Our date shadow, we can hit the eyeball, make it go away, and in our active mode, it's still going to be there. So let's go to dim, and let's give that the same color. And notice it should be there. Oh, I guess it's not. Okay, so the shadow, I want that to not be there, so I'm going to click on this shadow, get rid of that. So that should show up here still. Okay, good. Yeah, I was changing the color on the shadow, not the date. So let's go back and change this. Oh, now this is showing up. I don't want that. Okay. So let's go to date, and let's pick our dim color again. And I guess I have to eyeball it again. Here's our dim color there. Awesome. And maybe we don't have the power up there. Now here's our problem: is we have to get our images to show there. So if I put my image up there, my 9. Let's see. Let's go to a time. Let's go back here to 0. So let's go to our zeros here. You see that? We probably don't want that way. So maybe we can. We can't change the opacity. We already tried that. Okay. Yeah, we can't change the opacity of these because that. Well, if you remember, our opacity is based on this formula. If I change the opacity, then it's going to not work. So what I did is I created a rectangle, and I put the rectangle over. So here's the rectangle right there, and I rotated the rectangle 345. So that angle right there. See this rotating angle right here? It covers my letters. I made it black, and I made it see-through. So now the letters are now dimmed as I go through at night. Now this is going to save some power. Obviously, it's going to be not as bright. So that's why we have the dim setting. So there's our dim setting here, and then here is our active setting. So when I look at the watch, it wakes up and it shows me that. And that's pretty much it. If you want to do anything more than that or changes, obviously you can. If you have any questions about how to do something, maybe I can help you figure it out. Anyway, if that is helpful to you, let me know. I will be doing some more watch faces. I really love doing it, and so it's going to be fun for me. And I will probably be revisiting some of my old designs. And so if you go to facer.io and look up Go Savage, and if you have a question, any particular design, I'd be glad to try to figure out how I did it, because it's been a while, and we can maybe make it better. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.